For most of human history, we've lived with a comfortable distinction. There is the biological world we were born into, and the technological tools we build to survive it. Trees belong to one category, smartphones to another. But the exact moment you look closely at how we actually live our lives today, that strict boundary collapses. Technology has evolved beyond an isolated instrument we pick up and put down. It has grown into an encompassing environment, a landscape in its own right, shaping how we move, what we remember, and how we perceive reality. Over an 18-month investigation called the I/O Project, I explored exactly how human experience is being filtered through these compounding layers of abstraction. The project breaks this down into three distinct, overlapping realities. First nature, our biological world; second nature, our built environment; and third nature, the digital and virtual spaces we increasingly inhabit. To understand our modern sense of alienation, we must trace humanity's continuous migration across these three increasingly artificial layers. The first phase of this investigation looks at our initial reaction to ecological collapse, the desire to abandon Earth entirely and migrate into outer space. This era was driven heavily by Cold War futurism and modernist technological optimism, captured by cinematic science fiction like Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. But treating the cosmos as an escape hatch doesn't represent genuine human evolution. It is simply an extension of the exact same unsustainable industrial behavior that triggered our terrestrial crises to begin with. We abandoned first nature for off-world habitation, an architecture that is highly controlled, entirely machine-like, and psychologically detached from biological reality. As a reaction against that isolated space futurism, the second phase, hypogeolandscape, redirects the investigation inward, exploring subterranean and embedded structures. This draws heavily on the philosophy of organic architecture, championed by figures like Frank Lloyd Wright, whose goal was to place buildings in physical equilibrium with the geology and terrain around them. You can see this philosophy in practice here. The spatial sequencing and raw materiality treat the home not as an isolated object, but as an extension of the Earth itself. This physical approach shares deep roots with classical Japanese spatial philosophy, where the relationship between humans, structures, and weather is kept in deliberate proportion. Yet, second nature faces a modern complication. We rarely experience these physical landscapes directly anymore. Instead, we increasingly consume them through screens, algorithmic mapping, and digital simulations. Our physical reality has been intercepted by technological mediation, leaving us with a fragmented, glitch-aesthetic perception of the world around us. This brings us to the third phase, the Soviet butterfly, moving the investigation upward to the ionosphere, the glowing atmospheric threshold between Earth and space. The ionosphere exists as an active, invisible technological territory, a layer of the atmosphere co-opted for human communication and navigation systems. During the Cold War, this layer was actively weaponized into a massive surveillance and radio transmission network, requiring extreme physical infrastructure to manipulate the invisible atmosphere. These colossal arrays enforce systemic control, operating completely outside of general public awareness. Third nature represents the condition we find ourselves in today, an invisible, continuous environment where natural weather, global politics, and digital surveillance perfectly overlap. All of this forces a central question. Is contemporary society actually moving further away from nature? The evidence points to no. We haven't left nature. We have simply constructed artificial layers to mediate, control, and understand it. If we look back across the trajectory of this investigation, it becomes clear that the digital layer has entirely subsumed the physical world. For a screen-dependent generation, AI, algorithms, and invisible infrastructures have emerged as our primary ecological landscape. These digital systems shape our memories, our perceptions, and our spatial choreography just as profoundly as physical geography once did. To survive an era defined by accelerating technology, we must stop treating the natural and artificial worlds as separate entities. We live in a single, fully mediated reality.